Wildfire mitigation is an essential part of your farm or ranch wildfire plan. Taking action before the threat of a wildfire can help reduce asset loss and increase the safety of those living and working on your property. It will also help emergency responders by making it easier and safer to protect your operation. In this video, we will explain how wildfires can move from the surrounding forest onto your land. We will also identify simple actions you can take to mitigate this risk. According to the FireSmart methodology, risk from wildfires originates from 3 different forms of ignition: embers, radiant heat, and direct flame. Embers. Embers have been known to travel 5 to 6 kilometers and can ignite fine fuels such as grass, branches, needles, and wood adjacent to buildings. These are called ember traps. This is the primary way fires spread from forest to and through farms and ranches. Radiant heat. Radiant heat can ignite combustible and flammable materials if a fire gets close enough, within 10 meters of those materials, and burns hot enough and for long enough. Direct flame. Direct flames from a fire can ignite combustible materials in its path and then continue burning through your farm from fuel source to fuel source. Both radiant heat and direct flame require fuel pathways to travel through a farm. Every operation and circumstance is unique. By understanding how each of these 3 forms of ignition work, you can identify where fires might start on your farm and how they might spread through your farm. You will then be able to begin the work of reducing risk from wildfires to your operations by removing pathways and opportunities for ignition. Now we will explore real examples of how these forms of ignition might occur and what some mitigation solutions might be. We will start with the primary source of ignition: embers. Reducing risk from ember ignition means removing ember traps.
These fence panels are a perfect ember trap. Embers will get in there and can sit there and smolder for hours at times and ignite and burn your entire building down. The issues in this area are fairly easy to fix. The dead vegetation can be removed. The holes in the side of the wall that lead right into the straw can be patched and covered over. It's important to make sure that you eliminate these ember traps because those embers can smolder for hours, if not a full day, and you may lose your structure well after the fire front has passed through. An area like this is high risk for ignition from ember transplant. You have lumber, sawdust on the ground, dead grass. In some situations, you'd be able to clear this down to a non-combustible surface, like if it's on concrete or gravel or dirt. In other situations, that would be too much work. So you can minimize that chance of ignition by separating it from the outside area with covering it with tarps, poly, plastic, draping it over either over the piles or right across the opening on the front of the building.
While it's not always practical or even possible to enclose the areas that we have our feed and hay stored in, what we need to do is mitigate against the risk of that fire spreading from that area outside into our priority zones. So if at all possible, we want to keep these dry feed storage areas away from our other priority structures. Another consideration would be dividing your piles so that if one's lost, the other may be saved.
Often on farms, collections of different materials can accumulate whether they are being stored for later or waiting to be removed from the property. These present great risks to the farm as ember traps.
We see in here the collection of dried vegetation, which is going to grow back annually. It's the perfect ember trap. The ember is going to come rolling in here and absolutely ignite this highly flammable material. It's going to move into the other larger, coarser materials, and we're going to have a serious fire.
Accumulation of combustible materials, waste piles, dry vegetation, and other fine fuels are inevitable on a farm or ranch and sometimes difficult to avoid. As part of your annual fire mitigation strategy, identify priority areas on your operation and start by reducing ember traps in those areas. This might include clearing vegetation and dry material accumulation before fire season, and moving combustible materials to safer locations. It can also mean closing in areas from embers, perhaps by skirting crawl spaces with metal siding, closing in eaves with 3mm mesh, or hanging plastic over large openings as temporary measure. Now we will explore ways to mitigate the risk of fire from radiant heat and direct flame.
So fire follows the fuel. Combustible materials and elements can actually act as pathways leading the fire back to our priority structures. What we need to do is eliminate those pathways, remove them, and create a defensible space of 10 meters around our priority structures.
Radiant heat.
Fire spread from radiant heat takes place because a fire is burning intensely enough, long enough, and close enough to spread the fire directly to another fuel source. For example, if we had fire in this stand of mature conifers, we could easily see the fire spread to this structure without there ever being direct flame contact. The cinder block building is an excellent example of a structure that is impervious to radiant heat. Other examples of exterior building material that can withstand radiant heat would include metal siding, forms of stucco siding. The very popular cement fiber board or hardy plank is also an excellent choice.
Direct flames.
We see here a perfect example of a potential pathway fire could take. We see the long grass growing in the wooden fence leading directly to the barn. While it isn't practical to assume we're going to eliminate all of our risk from wildfire, it's important that we focus on the areas of importance around our primary structures. Taking the fence back 10 meters and replacing it with a non-combustible material, and eliminating the ground fuels specifically within that 1.5 non-combustible zone would be absolutely critical for this structure. Wherever possible, creating a 1.5 meter non-combustible surface around all of our priority structures is absolutely essential. What it will do is it will eliminate the path of fire to our structure, as well as eliminate the capacity for embers to ignite when landing in that zone. For example, this heavy rock, this heavy gravel is an excellent choice. You can see that some of the grass clippings from last season are in here. It would just be a very gentle raking that would eliminate that debris buildup, and that would basically be required annually just before fire season.
In many cases, you will find opportunities for multiple forms of ignition together in one place.
A very common situation on many rural properties is having multiple outbuildings fairly close together. A situation like this where you have two buildings this far apart, there's still risk of fire spread, even though there's non-combustible concrete separating the two. If this building went up due to the lumber or anything else in here, it can still spread to that building in any of three ways. Embers could fly across, land in the gutters or the other material around there, and cause that building to ignite. The radiant heat from this building could be enough to ignite that one as well. Or you could have direct flame from the fence line behind me. That can be mitigated as easily as just opening that gate.
Replacing the wooden gate with a metal one is another option. The roofing materials is another important consideration, and especially on priority structures, should be changed to metal, clay tile, or asphalt roofing. These are just a couple of ways you can mitigate the risk of fire spreading through direct flame or radiant heat. Remember, define your priority areas and focus on those first, and then strategize how to create a 10-meter defensible space and then a 30-meter defensible space by reducing ember traps and removing pathways for radiant heat and direct flames. To help with this process, you can use the checklist in the risk reduction section in the guide. This section provides a list of combustible materials to look for and a checklist of actions and strategies. This can be used alongside a copy of your operations map, which you may find helpful for guiding your mitigation priorities. For more information about making this map, watch the Creating an Operations Map video. For more resources to help in learning about wildfire risk and mitigation, visit www.firesmartbc.ca. But fire mitigation is only one of many essential parts of preparing for wildfire. To learn more about what you can do and to download the complete guide and workbook, visit www.climateagriculturebc.ca/wildfire.